Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The Lizardmen are out on the prowl, and they are going to be hunting for the forces of Sigmar. So we have Lizardmen versus Empire today. Adelmo going to be leading the Lizardmen, and we'll have Legion leading the forces of the Empire. So for the Lizardmen, they're going to have a bunch of Saurus spears for a kind of frontline troop, as they will be protecting a pair of solar Bastiladons. For the Lord, it is going to be a Slan Mage Priest of High, and is going to be bringing Apotheosis, Tempest, the Shield of the Old Ones, Bound Banishment, the Greater Arcane Conduit, and Cold-Blooded. We do also have a pair of Skink Chiefs as well. Very nice cheap unit that does do poison, nice little ranged attack, and it does have another little bit of Cold-Blooded on top of that. For the rest of the forces, we do have some more Skink cohort with Javelins, but vanguarded in the front is going to be a quad of Chameleon Skinks, going to be doing a little bit of reconnaissance for the time being. They do all have stock, so they are going to be hidden from those pesky eyes of Sigmar. In the forest, we do have a little bit of sneaky action with some Feral Cold Ones off into the tree line, looking to get the jump on some unsuspecting invaders of the Empire. So speaking of the Empire, we do have Marcus Wolfhart. He is going to be leading the forces with his Hunter Snare, Amber Bow, and Focused Shot. So he is going to be looking for those big targets to shoot at, and there will be some Solar Bastiladons for him to target down. For the rest of the forces, we have a ton of infantry. We have some great swords in the front line with the Sigmar Sons, and backed up behind them is going to be a line of spearmen, and then there is also going to be 5 halberdiers as well mixed in, so going very heavy on the anti-large, especially when you have 3 huntsmen to boot. So expecting a lot of large targets, and there isn't going to be quite that many, though there will still be plenty of targets for them to be firing in at, and for those halberdiers to be engaging with the Feral Cold Ones, the 2 Bastiladons, and even that Slan. And we do also have a Great Cannon going to be waiting in the rear to start firing away. And for magic, we do have an Amber Wizard with Transformation of Kadan, as well as a Bright Wizard with Burning Head. So, pretty well-rounded army for the Empire. Let's get things rolling here at a little bit quicker speed, as both armies are going to be positioning to kind of get the range on one another. The Solar Bastiladons going to be slowly backing their way. I think they are going to be trying to take this hill up here, so they'll be able to fire down onto the Empire, but those great cannons are going to be a little bit of a problem. The Chameleon Skinks going to be opening up into Marcus Wolfhart. Essentially now at this point, they just need to keep him away from their big targets, so as long as they keep him out of range of their Solar Bastiladons, that'll be quite good for them. And as long as those Chameleons are there, now that they are going to be seen by Marcus Wolfhart, but they will be backing up as these huntsmen do start firing in. Now they really can just tank those shots, because I think the Chameleon Skinks would much rather be taking those shots versus the Solar Bastiladons, for example. But now that the Solar Bastiladons have taken the hill, they are going to start firing in, though the cannon is going to be returning its shots as they do open up on both sides. Solar Bastiladon does have a little less range though, so we'll have to get a little bit closer, but they are going to be just starting to get into range of those cannons, and away goes the shots. First shot is going to be missing, but at least it does connect with the spearmen, and the shots are going to just continue to fire in, and that second shot does find home, already eliminating one of the great cannons. Now the Amber Wizard going to be responding with a Transformation of Kadan, getting that Feral Manicore up in the sky, trying to shut down those units as quickly as they can, but man, these great cannons are just getting lit up right now, as they only have 2 units left, but the shots are going to be starting to fire in onto that Slan. Shot going towards Marcus Wolfhart, maybe not the best idea. I think they really do need to make sure that those cannons do get offline, and a Tempest does go down, slowing down that Feral Manicore, trying to keep it from getting too close to the units it wants to, and just kind of waiting out that cast for as long as they can. It does rampage it though, very nice ability there. So that shot from the Solar Bastiladon doing just enough damage with that Tempest to get it to rampage down into the Legion at Chakwa. Much rather be there than against any of the Solar Bastiladons or even the Slan. Now the Skink Chief and the Solar Bastiladon has taken a fair amount of damage, while the Solar Bastiladon is continuing to fire in to Marcus Wolfhart. Not really the biggest target, so maybe a little better targets for it on the field, especially with these great cannons in the rear still firing away. As we have a bound banishment going off right into these huntsmen. Very nice cast there, as the second transformation of Kadan has been cast and is now going to be hunting for its targets. Probably not going to be able to get Rampage here. That Slan's going to be trying to get away from it. Needs to kind of hide amongst its spears and the rest of its units. Hopefully able to Rampage it again and keep that Slan nice and safe. But it is going to be running and taking quite a bit of damage in return, and there isn't really a whole lot directly close by that can keep it, but it does Rampage, so now that Slan needs to get out of there, especially considering the cannon fire is still firing away at it. And the rest of the forces, we have the Legion of Chakwa is going to be engaging with the Sigmar Sons. Now, the Sigmar Sons are going to be able to survive that for quite some time. And unfortunately, the Rampage on this Feral Manicore has kept it on top of the Slan Mage Priest, but now it has finally routed, though it has done a considerable amount of damage and pretty much paid for its cost to bring, especially considering now that Slan Mage Priest has to be exceptionally careful. We do have a net going down on top of the Bastiladon and the Sora Spears here. I think we are going to be looking to get maybe Amber Bow or Focus Shot, as we do see Marcus Wolfheart tee up and just firing into that Bastiladon. Though I don't see the Focus Shot, so I'm not really sure what that net was exactly used for. Potentially trying to snipe it with something else, but a nice rear charge by the Feral Cold Ones as they get on top of the Huntsmen into the unsuspecting units of the Empire, but they instantly Rampage once they do get in. I think some better targets may have been these Great Cannons, who are still firing away, and there isn't really anything to really stop them, as another net does go down on top of the Feral Cold Ones, keeping them in place, and they very well may rout here from all the shots coming in from the Huntsmen. And this other Solar Spit is still on, getting the shield of the Old Ones and a Focus Shot going down. And will it be able to get behind the hill in time, as the Focus Shot does wind up, and the shot is going to actually hit that hill. Unfortunate for the Empire, but a nice burning head. Going to be roasting through all these units. It does go right through the unit of Great Swords, but it does do some decent damage to those Saurus Spears as well. But Marcus Wolfheart just continuing to get focused down by the Solar Bastillon, so maybe I was a little too early to say they had better shots to be targeting, and Marcus Wolfheart does get routed off, and he is very low on health, only at 313. He might come back, and he still has quite a bit of units to fire in, but with the shots continuing to rain in from the Solar Bastillon, a few more clips here and there might be all. I see now he is down to 48, and I don't think we'll be seeing him anymore. But the rampaging Feral Cold Ones have gotten into the Great Cannons. However, the Spearmen are going to be there to respond to that, though the Great Cannons are getting very close to routing regardless, as they try and pull back through their own units, and they do actually end up routing with only 10 units left. They very well might be done and dusted for the remainder of the match. So a little luck coming the way for the Lizardmen, despite the initial engagements, seeing how that Slan Mage Priest and the Solar Bastillons themselves have taken so much damage. But now that the Huntsmen are in range of the Slan, and they can see over this hill, so they are getting some nice shots in, and that Slan needs to be aware of that and pull back even farther. It does get a nice banishment into these Halberdiers and Great Swords, doing a lot of damage there. But Marcus Wolfheart, even with so low HP, he is back with 48, though he is on death's door in terms of leadership, and very well might just rout from even a light breeze at this point. Units trying to push over this hill, chasing some more of the Saurus Spears, and the Solar Bastillon, I don't know if he's trying to tank some of the shots for that Slan or what, but yeah, those units are in dire straits right now. Though on the bright side for the Lizardmen, the ammunition on all of the Huntsmen is getting a little low, and with Marcus Wolfheart pretty much a non-factor, though he doesn't need to be close to get his value in. He can potentially get another Focus Shot or an Amber Bow to really finish things off, as he is trying to get in range, but you can see his leadership is still wavering despite the fact he's been out of combat and away from enemy forces. All it takes is going to be a light breeze, and away he shall go. So Huntsman getting caught out by some of these skinks in the rear. Chameleon skinks starting to kind of just kite away with the rest of the forces, as some units, though, are getting compromised by some spears, as a shot from Marcus Wolfheart lands into the skink chief, but shots can be raining directly down the hill by these Solar Bastillons, but they are going to be taking a considerable amount of fire from these Huntsmen, who do have anti-large missile fire. So that Bastillon going to be taking quite a bit of damage there. And that Skink Chief is getting caught up with a bunch of Halberdiers, though the Halberdiers aren't going to really be getting much in bonus versus large. They will be keeping that Skink Chief from firing away shots into the shots that do matter. And yeah, the Solar Bastildon now with Marcus Wolfhart firing in, though we do have some Skink cohorts, so I think they are looking to kind of shut things down, but those Halberdiers going to have a say or two in that regard, as they do try and screen out the Skinks from kind of getting onto Marcus Wolfhart. Though I think at this point, Marcus Wolfhart, he does get a net down, catching both of the Skink Chief and the Solar Bastildon. I was going to say he's probably getting a little too close up, especially considering how close he's getting to even the Saurus Pierce, but damn, that Solar Bastildon with the snipe takes out Marcus Wolfhart with a shot, despite it being netted, and away goes the Lord for the Empire, though the balance of power is still in their favor, as they have shut down a lot of units. The Solar Bastildon's getting very, very low, though they are still in the fight. Despite all odds, we are losing the Skink Chief, and that Slan Mage Priest has to have been very, very careful throughout, though the Lizardmen are losing kind of a lot of their forces across the board. Their Skink Chief does come back in here, so he's able to start firing in, targeting that Amber Wizard. If they can eliminate the two casters for the Empire, they might be able to win out by leadership, as a lot of the Empire state troops are getting quite low in that regard, and especially if they can have at least one Solar Bastildon still around and kicking, though I'm not so sure if they're going to be able to do that, as this Solar Bastildon is routing, and the other one is also getting very, very close to the edge of the map, as these Halberdiers are going to be pushing it off, so that Terror might not be able to be used in that late game, though they do have one unit coming back, and the range, though, for the Empire is pretty much spent. This Huntsman using the last of its ammunition. So at this point, if the Lizardmen pretty much just use their Solar Bastildon as a mobile terror unit, as it has used the last of its ammo as well, that may be the way for the Lizardmen to kind of slowly go from unit to unit, cleaning things up. Skink Chiefs themselves have used up a lot of their ammo, but a Burning Head trying to catch out these two Chameleon Skinks is going to be dodged in the nick of time, avoiding all of that damage, as the shots are going to be routing off that Bright Wizard. But really, the Lizardmen need to keep this Solar Bastildon alive and well. The Slan Mage Priest uses its Apotheosis on itself. I think that would have much better been used on this Solar Bastildon, as it really needs to stay alive, and at least healthy as well, allowing the rest of the units to kind of whittle things down. The last of the ammunition not able to finish off that Solar Bastildon, so now that Solar Bastildon needs to be careful of the Halberdiers, let the Chameleon Skinks and the rest of the forces whittle them down, but otherwise go through the units, route them off with, use those terror routes, especially when it needs to, and then kind of clean things up. But yeah, things just not looking so good, as a lot of the units, I mean the Halberdiers particularly, are going to be a tough nut to crack for what the Lizardmen have left, because they don't have a whole lot of Saurus left, and all of the Chameleon Skinks have pretty much used up their ammunition. You still have some of the Skink Chiefs running around, and there is that Apotheosis that they needed, and there you get those routes as they get close to that Bastildon. The fear and terror kicks in, causing them to go, and that Solar Bastildon going to be kicking that Bright Wizard down the hill, routing it off, and another charge is very likely going to shatter it. So that is what that Solar Bastildon needs to be used for. It's exactly what they did there, routing off those units. Now those Huntsmen do come back, though at this point they really aren't going to be too much of a threat, as the Slan is going to be running for the hills, trying to get away from those halberds. It does not want to be anywhere near them, though it is going to turn and fight here. Maybe some better choices in that regard, but it has used up both of its bound banishments, so it doesn't have anything like that. It is going to allow the Legion of Chaco, though, to get into that fight, doing some decent damage, though. However, it might be able to rout these halberds. They are getting very low on leadership, and they do finally rout, so things turning in the favor of the Lizardmen here, with the leadership being the biggest crux for the Empire forces, as all of the halberds are starting to get broken down bit by bit, as the Lizardmen are pulling ahead now in that balance of power, as we do have some of the leadership coming back, but otherwise the Solar Bastildon has done well on that flank, and the tenacity of these Chameleon Skinks have just been able to drag all of these halberds through the ground, and that Slan is going to be able to kind of pull things back and solidify his position over here, as he's going to be going into these halberds here. He really should have some more support here, as I know most of the units are chasing off a lot of the surrounding units, but he is a large target, and these halberds will do a lot of damage, and the Lizardmen can't afford to be losing their Slan. They still has quite a bit of like cast and stuff to be used. He does have Apotheosis. Now that fear definitely could provide enough, but that has since passed, so he's just going to be kind of kiting away. Well, I guess the Slan's not going to be kiting away. He's going to be allowing the Skink Chief to fire in, get as much damage as he can, while the Chameleon Skinks do kind of push off these remaining halberds. Though with how close they are to the white line, they very, very well might get pushed off themselves. And for the rest of the map, you can just kind of see things slowly getting broken down for the Empire, and in comes the Solar Bastillodon, going to be charging down the hill, shattering these huntsmen with its mere approach, and that Amber Wizard will be surely soon to follow as the Bastillodon charges down the spear. Amber Wizard routes, and I think army losses are going to be very, very close for the Empire, as I see no way for just the handful of units left. We do have some halberds, but yeah, they're not going to be able to win against the Slan and the Solar Bastillodon, especially with that fear and terror. And that is going to be our game, and Lizardmen pull it back despite all odds. Really wasn't expecting them to be able to do that, but luckily one of the Solar Bastillons was able to survive, doing some very nice damage, getting 1,700 in value, other one getting 1,000. Earlier I did think they were a little misfiring when they weren't trying to deal with these cannons, though the cannons did do quite a bit of damage, so did Marcus, but by eliminating Marcus, that leadership penalty against everything else, because they are just state troops after all, they aren't really known for their leadership. And when you don't have a leadership bastion and there's fear and terror in the late game, that can be a considerable problem. I mean, it was halberds, but they just weren't able to kind of do the job that they needed to, as nothing else, none of these state troops really kind of did what very well at all, even the great swords. However, the huntsmen did quite well. One of the units getting 1,300, able to fire into some very nice targets with the Solar Bastillodons, but when they weren't able to finish off that Solar Bastillodon, I mean, the Solar Bastillodon, even if as long as it's still on the field, it is still a considerable threat, even when all of its ammunition has been used. And of course, we do have the Skink Chiefs as well, doing some good work, hitting almost 1,000 value. But yeah, that was kind of the biggest problem there, was that having that fear and terror left, the Empire just couldn't hold out against it. That was a very fun match, nice back and forth action here, and I do hope you enjoyed the video though. And as always, have a good one.